Hello and welcome to Heal the World Show podcast, brought to you by the Healing Institute. I'm Parmelia Parham. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Healing Institute. And the Healing Institute is an online worldwide hub of holistic practitioners. We really want to help people who are looking for alternative ways to be well and stay well on their health journey, because we're all on a health journey. So let's make it a proactive, positive health journey rather than a reactive, negative one, which we, have all had that experience, I'm sure. So we are looking at a big ask. We are asking for you to let people know about the Healing Institute. We have some amazing holistic practitioners. They actually get to the root cause of what's going on. It's not just a symptom, or they don't just look at the symptoms. They actually get to the root cause of whatever the issue might be. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be spiritual. But we want to be able to get to that root cause and really have the healing take place. So I've been studying alternative ways to be well for well over 20 years, and it definitely works. I created the Healing Institute because I'm really passionate about educating people and giving people the tools so that they can use these tools on their health journey. And you might ask why this is important to me. Well, we had a tragedy in our family a number of years ago where my mom passed away at a very young age. She was only 61. And we didn't know that the medication that she had been on for a very long time was going to compromise her kidneys. So unfortunately, it happened very quickly. It was right before Christmas. I was already 5 months pregnant with my first child, my son. And we just were, as a family, it was a tragedy because it happened so quickly. It happened at that time of the year. I was excited about, my mother being part of my life with my children. And I don't want that happening for anybody else. So that is one of my whys as to why it's so important for me to have the Healing Institute as a vehicle to support people while they are on their health journey. And each week I invite a guest co-host to come and talk about their modalities, talk about their area of expertise. And I am so delighted today to have Daniela I'm sorry, I'm going to not say your last name properly. Kosh. I was practicing earlier, just so you know. Anyway, I am delighted to have Daniela here. Daniela is a transformational coach, and specifically her area of expertise is menopause mindset. And that is so important for so many women. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Daniela. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Very excited to be here as well.
So tell us a little bit about how did you get to become a transformational coach, and specifically around menopause?
Yeah, so I've actually been coaching for over 25 years. I started out in the corporate world with corporate coaching, leadership training senior leaders to move to the next level in their career. And when I left my corporate job, I realized that's really the work I loved. I also became an art therapist because I wanted to have like another way of approaching that transformation. So creativity meant a lot. And I also do pranic healing, which is an energy healing modality. So when I hit perimenopause, and just to clarify for you and the audience, which is the time when
Yes, please do.
The cycle, so perimenopause usually says like the last 2 to 3 years before you go into menopause, meaning your cycle stops completely. And once you haven't had a cycle for a year, you're officially in menopause. But perimenopause is the time before, when your cycle becomes very irregular, and a lot of women experience various symptoms. So when I hit that phase, I was so unprepared for what was coming. Physically, I thought, I'm going to have some hot flashes and maybe be a little bit cranky, and that's it. And that was absolutely not my experience.
And
So
maybe similar to you, I had no idea there was a perimenopause. I had,
exactly. And I had no idea how long it would take and how exhausting it would be and how challenging. So my big issue is I was truly struggling with insomnia. I could not sleep. I could not fall asleep. I could not sleep through the night. I would spend like a couple of hours awake each night. And yeah, you can imagine what that does to your
well, then
emotions.
you just can't function when you
You
have.
can't function. You can't function properly. So I started to dig into this. And then because I am a transformational coach, I also thought like there's more going on than
Yes,
just the physical side of this change, right? We're coming to the end of fertility, whereas in society, so much is connected to that. Like, what does it mean to our roles? What does it mean to our value, our worth when that kind of goes away? So I felt a certain amount of grief. I never had children. I never thought I would not have children. It's just how life played out,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I realized, well, now, there's a finite moment where you realize it's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And that I realized can also cause a lot of grief. And it causes grief whether you had children, whether you didn't have children, whether you wanted to have children, whether you wanted to have more children, whether you were happy with the amount of children you have. No matter what your situation is, there's a certain grief and sense of loss that can come with that. So yeah, I just started to dig into like what was going on for me emotionally, mentally, and I was also, of course, trying to figure out what would help me. How could I go through this transition? How could I make it a time that was empowering instead of focusing on something ending, focusing on something
Yes. Yeah.
new beginning?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's what I then realized a lot of women are actually searching as well. And I started to build a program around that. I'm in the process of writing a book about
Oh,
my 7
wonderful.
pillars of transition through this phase, which can go for any transition. But of course, I'm looking at it through the lens of menopause.
Mhm.
And I think I've helped women then, kind of multiply their impact, their reach. Some of them have changed careers, had
It's a big
a
it's a big transition in women's lives, not only physically, but I remember when I turned 50
Mhm.
and I was just in perimenopause by then, and I was like, you know what? There are some things I don't want to do anymore. All right, I'm not doing them.
You know what? That's so interesting you said that because I feel like for a lot of women, there comes this moment where almost a little bit of feistiness comes out, a little bit of,
Exactly. Yeah.
and you're like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with this. I'm done with that. I'm done with trying to please everybody. I'm just going to be authentically me. And I think that is a real gift that comes with menopause as well.
Yeah, and mine were very practical. Like, I lived in a large city, and to get to another smaller city, you had to go on the highway, for example.
Mhm.
And I don't like driving on the highway. And so
Mhm.
I just decided that's it. I'm not driving on the highway. If we need to
I
get to
like
that
that.
other place, somebody else is going to be driving. So, I
I
mean,
absolutely love
it
that.
wasn't major. It was, major
Yeah.
life changes. It was just some very, I can't, there was a couple of other things too, that I
Yeah.
just decided, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
and you're right. It kind of came up with that sort of feisty, no, I've made this decision. Now I'm
Yeah.
sticking to my decision.
Not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
when you're working with your clients, our audience
Mhm.
always likes to know, what are some of
Yeah.
the results that your clients receive from working with you?
Yeah. So this might be resonating with your audience as well. Because I think it's a time where a lot of women make that shift of saying, I want to contribute, I want to give back. It might be a time that also coincides with being an empty nester, which offers, new possibility. A
Right.
lot of my clients also have like aging parents caring for them, maybe losing parents as well, that coincides with that time. So I have a lot of women that make, as you say, sometimes small shifts, but also sometimes really big shifts. So of my recent clients, she was a senior executive, senior leader in a company. She was a regional manager for an HR topic, and she got offered a promotion to become the global head for this HR function,
Wow.
which on paper sounds amazing, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like amazing promotion, but through our work together, what she also realized, she wasn't. Well, how do you say that? It's not like she wasn't sure. Well, she wasn't sure whether she wanted it, to be honest. Because she realized the global role, is sitting in Europe.
Might have been something that she hadn't. Yeah, she might have been searching or thinking that that would be the next step for her. But then when it's presented to you, you go, oh, well, what does that mean? More travel,
Exactly.
more time away from home. If you've got, teenager children, you might not want to be away from home that much. And so it's a really
the practicality.
evaluation.
Yeah, the practicality set in, working with Asia, working with the US, being based in Europe, that means early mornings and late nights.
Yeah.
So her working day would have expanded tremendously. And we did a lot of work around her really connecting more to the wisdom of her body, because menopause also oftentimes causes us to pause a little bit and to rest more and just be more aware of what's going on in the body and really connecting to the body. And she realized that's not what she wanted. So, but she had the desire to contribute in some way. And she also knew that if she refused the promotion, obviously her bosses thought she was up for something more. She wanted to do something more, but it wasn't that. So what was it? So through our work together, she then realized what she really was passionate about was mentoring younger women in their careers. So she went back to her bosses and said, I'm not going to take the promotion, but I would love to start a mentoring program for women within the company. And that's what she did.
Wonderful. Yes. So she was able to then look at what she really wanted to do and what her heart was telling her that she wanted to do. And
what her body was telling her and her heart. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's so important. Because as women, as young girls, little girls, young girls were raised to look after other people.
Exactly.
That's just the way it is. Certainly, all over the world. I talk to women all over the world, and it's not just Canada and the US and Europe and England. It's everywhere. We're all there was that mindset. That's how we were raised. And so we give, and then if we have children, we raise children. Sometimes we're in that what's called sandwich generation, where we have parents that need looked after. That happened to me for a while, where I had teenage children, and also my mom, of course, had passed away, but my dad started to have some health issues. And things like, taking him to doctor's appointments, and also running a business. So you're stretched everywhere. And then you need to think, okay, well, what is really important to me?
Exactly.
What does my heart say? And we don't, that's a complete transition and shift, because now we're not in the serving role. Maybe we weren't happy in that role. It could have been forced on us, but we still did it because that's how we were raised. And now all of a sudden we have some idea that we could actually do something for ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think mindset around self-care, I'm sure you found this in your clients and the work that you do, mindset to shift to a non-selfish, that self-care is not selfish.
No, exactly.
Self-care is very important, because if we don't look after us physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, we don't have the energy to do what we want to do. Plus, if we're still looking after others as well. Very important.
Yeah. So with this client as well, I think what I loved is that she was saying, I could have pushed through this challenge and just, kind of, push through it. And I think we do that for a lot of our lives. We
Yes.
are in this mindset, I'm just going to push through, I'm just going to go, I'm going to, we're very high functioning, somehow I'm going to manage. But I think this time is really when the body sometimes puts a stop to that and says, you know what, no more pushing through. And I think it really comes at the cost of our health later on if we
Yes, you're
don't
right.
listen to the body at that
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
absolutely. Because our bodies are very smart. And
The
so
bodies are very smart. Yep.
and when we don't listen,
When we
there
don't
something else
listen.
is going to happen physically or
Exactly.
mentally to get our attention. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we need to pay attention. And again,
Yeah.
that's another transition and another shift, Daniela, because we haven't been taught to do that. We haven't been taught to look after ourselves. So now all of a
Exactly.
sudden we need those tools.
We need those tools to care for ourselves, to look after ourselves, and really nurture ourselves and follow our own needs. And I think that was for me a big thing as well, that I realized I really need to follow my own needs first before I
And oftentimes, I think what happens is we don't know what we need because
no.
we've been caring for a family, we've been caring for a position, whatever our career was. So again, that's another piece of the transition is
Yeah.
figuring out who we really are as we're
Yeah.
going through all this other transition with perimenopause and
Exactly.
menopause. Yeah.
Yeah. May I share a quick story about myself and
Oh,
this one?
please. Yes, please do.
So I had a situation in that during that time where a friend asked me for some help in moving some boxes. And I said, yes, of course, I'm going to help you. So he said, okay, on the day, I'm going to message you when and where to be. And I thought, okay, that's great. So the day, passed. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I had no message. I tried to message her, got no reply. 6 o'clock, nothing. 7 o'clock, I thought, okay, I'm going to have some dinner. So I started to sit down, had some dinner, started to put on my trainers, got on the couch, started to watch some TV. At 9 o'clock, she messaged me and asked me if I could come to her house now.
Goodness.
And I was just like, everything in me was just screaming, no, I don't want to get up again. I don't want to put on clothes again. I don't want to go out again. It's dark, it's cold, and so I realized I really wanted to have that evening for myself. So I
Mhm.
said no. I said, look, I'm really sorry. I've been waiting the whole day. It's really late now. I would appreciate if we could do it some other day. Right. But I was having such a guilt trip afterwards. I was like, oh my God, am I being selfish? Am I being a bad friend? Am I letting her down? And I really had to have a conversation with myself and say, look, it's not an emergency, right? If she called me and said, my car broke down outside the village, can you come and get me? I would have jumped up and gone, right? There's no question about that. But I thought it's not an emergency. We can do it some other day. She had the whole day to let me know when it was, and yeah. So that was really, and I thought like I really need to listen to my own need.
Yes, absolutely.
And but it was really interesting to observe everything that went on in my head and how difficult it was for me to say no in this
I know.
moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I try to do sort of like every year I have like not a theme for the year, but like a mantra. So let's say a
Yes.
mantra for the
Yeah.
year. And a couple of years ago, this was my mantra. No is a full sentence.
I love it.
You don't have to explain why you've said no.
No.
You don't have to
No.
justify why you're saying no. You don't have to give
Exactly.
all the reasons why you're saying no.
Yeah.
Just, and nicely, of course, politely,
Yeah. Yeah.
nicely. You don't have to be
Yeah.
mean about it. But,
No.
I remember that so much because it's so true. If we don't say no, and we're not looking after our own needs and our own self.
Yeah.
And then you would have, even if you decided to go help her at 9 o'clock at night, you would have felt resentful. You
I
probably
would have felt resentful. I would have been angry or, but I realized also like my natural instinct, and I think that's true for you probably and a lot of your listeners as well. The instinct is just to say yes. When somebody asks me something like, oh, can you help me? Say, yes, of course. Can you do this? Can you do that? My natural instinct is always to say yes, and it's gotten me into trouble. Whereas
Yes.
like then
Before you
afterwards you're
find out
thinking,
what you're saying yes to.
yeah, exactly. So another friend of mine, she used to say, if you want a quick answer, the answer is no.
Mm.
At first I thought that's very harsh, but then I realized it's actually true, right? You can always change your no from a yes, which is easier than to change from a yes to a no and go back and say, actually, I don't want to do it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
I've heard that from other people too.
okay, I've
They
done
said, yeah, if you want to really, if you want my answer right now,
no,
it's no.
yeah,
If you can let me think about it,
it might be
it might
something
still
different,
be no, but
or it might
or it might
be
change
yes.
it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very
Oh,
interesting.
that's beautiful. I love that story. That's great because really, again, that is us learning about ourselves
Yeah,
and
exactly.
taking our power back, taking our, being in alignment with who we are. And that
Yeah,
is so important. Yes.
exactly.
So there was some other modalities that you mentioned earlier when we were talking before we went live here. Tell me about that. I think our audience would be very interested to know. Was it pranic healing? That was one of them
Yes,
you do? Mhm.
yeah. So I've been practicing pranic healing for, I think it's 20 years now. It's 20
Wow.
years.
Hmm.
And pranic healing is an energy healing method. With that also comes breath work. So I also do breath work and meditation. And I realized it's just such a powerful tool because you can really shift the energy. And
Yes.
with the menopause, I also talk a lot about, sleep and stress management, and breath work plays a crucial role in that as well. We know
Yes.
just with the breathing, we can do amazing things. We can do amazing shifts in our neurology, in our nervous system very, very quickly. So that's something
Yes,
that
and
I
breathing's free.
and
Right?
breathing is free, and we do it anyway.
We're doing it
Right?
anyway. So let's
So
do
we
it.
might as well
Yeah. Do it properly.
do it
And
properly.
again, that's not something we're taught. We're not taught to take
No.
those deep breaths. And when we get into that fight, flight, or freeze mode, we're breathing very, very shallowly. So therefore the
Exactly.
oxygen isn't getting to our body, isn't getting to our
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
And we're not especially in menopause when we already have brain fog, the
Yeah.
last thing we need is to have more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very important. I love
Yeah.
I love the way you're combining everything in your practice
Thank you.
for your clients.
Yeah. And then the other thing I work a lot with is because I'm an art
I can't
therapist.
believe it, but we're the bottom already. So so you have let me see, you have a master class that's coming up. Tell us a
Yep.
little bit about that.
So I'm doing a sleep masterclass.
Hmm.
I'm calling it Pillow Talk for Power Players.
I like that
And
title.
it's just a free masterclass where we're gonna I explain a little bit on what's going on, the kind of the sleep science, a little bit demystified, like what's happening with your cortisol, what's happening, with the drop of estrogen, what impact does that have?
It's helpful to know the science behind it, isn't it?
I find it fascinating just to know a little bit of the science behind it. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not coming from that side, but I think there's some things that when we understand how they work, it's just so much easier to apply.
Yes. And there's so much
And
information out there now of other people that have studied the science. And so we've got those results available to us
exactly.
to,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
use and
Yeah.
to forward on to our clients as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I share some practical tools. What can you do when you use that neuroscience? When you use that, what can you do? How can you handle sleep disruptors in a more holistic way? And then I really love for people to just come in and, we can workshop their sleep together and just get an idea of what's going on, how it's playing out, what are the circumstances, and what can you do?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's that masterclass.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
when is that now?
So that's on October 17th. So I think
17th.
2 weeks from now at 7 p.m. my time. So that is 1 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. 1 p.m. Eastern is
And then 11
11 a.m.
a.m.
11 a.m. on Pacific Coast where I am.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, a replay available as well if you sign up.
Great.
Yeah.
And also now the workbook, this Zone of Genius workbook. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's
Yeah,
I love
that,
that idea.
thanks. That is one thing that I developed a couple of years ago, actually, before I was focusing on menopause. But I realized a lot of women actually don't know what they're really good at. They don't know where their zone of genius is. So
Mm,
this is just a workbook that I put together that really helps you to look at your qualities, helps you look at your superpowers, right? What are your superpowers? And for me, it's so important, and I recommend it to a lot of people that I work with because it really gets you to focus on your life experience. Because
yes.
I feel sometimes we don't value everything we went through,
We
but
don't
if you're a
realize
mother,
we don't realize this life experience, even the negative as well as the positive, is making us who we
absolutely.
are.
If you've raised children, if you cared for aging parents, if you had some kind of career, if you built a business, you've developed amazing skills
Mhm.
that are really, really valuable, right? So it also helps to really for women to find that wisdom and that
Yes.
life experience and their superpowers and their zone of genius. And then, of course, the next step is how can you turn that into something that you can contribute and you can share.
Something that you really want to do, or
Yeah,
and a lot of us have an idea, but we don't have the language. I
exactly.
have found, I only learned the term zone of genius not that long ago. It made
Yeah,
perfect sense to me, but
yeah,
the phraseology is now becoming more prominent. People are
yeah,
using that more often.
yeah.
And let's just touch a little bit on the archetypes. Now this is all part of on your website.
That
Um,
is on my website. Yeah.
yeah, so we will make sure that we put that in the show notes. And
Okay.
but tell us about I'm always fascinated about feminine archetypes. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that information.
Yeah. So I also realized in my work, and especially with the art therapy, where you do a lot of creativity and you work a lot with archetypes and archetypal figures that come out. And I realized again, for women, the archetypes are slightly different, but we move through those archetypes as we live our lives.
Yes.
And I think especially in menopause, there is a shift. I think with the mother archetype usually coming to an end or changing its
Mhm.
its being, and a lot of us moving into that, they call it the queen or the Amazon archetype, which is more about giving back. It's more about tapping into your wisdom. It's more about tapping into your intuition, your authenticity, the courage to be yourself, the courage to show yourself. So it's really interesting to explore. And I put together this guide that just gives an overview of like the shadow side of each archetype and then the empowered state when you're in your empowered archetype, and then the superpowers that come with these archetypes usually. And I think
Beautiful.
it's fascinating also to see, and me is always consoling if I realize I'm not the only one going through this. But
Mm-hmm.
there is some universal journeys that we go through, and moving through these archetypes is such a journey that is a shared experience of, just being human, being a woman.
Well, and
Um,
as women, we love to share for the most part.
exactly.
So, and we certainly, it helps us grow and helps us accept where we're at in our life when we know others have had a similar experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest co-host today, Daniela.
Thank you so
I,
much for having me.
we will be yes, so just wanting to people to know that we've created this community of expert health practitioners, and our motto is actually service with love, and
Oh,
we
I
have a
love
big
that.
ask. Let people know about us, let people know about the Healing Institute, let people know about this podcast. Tell your
Mhm.
friends, tell your family, tell your community, to help us get the word out so that we can help to heal the world.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing. It's amazing. And I love what you're doing with the Healing Institute and with your mission and bringing that health and wellness and well-being to many more people. I think that's amazing.
Thank you, Daniela. Yes, we see ourselves as the bridge between, the sort of the medical model that we've followed for many years which we know is broken and
Mhm.
doesn't work. We
Mhm.
don't want to throw it away because there's still good parts of it, but
Yeah.
we also need to bridge the alternative ways of looking at health and wellness, which is exactly what you're doing. So again, thank you so much for being my guest co-host. And thanks
Absolutely.
you for all of you who are going to be watching later and leaving comments. And we will talk to you next Friday again on the Heal the World Show podcast.
Wonderful.